Hey everyone, welcome back to Homestead Corner. Today I have got the must-have preps for 2023. So I really believe that we have got a tough road ahead. We're just getting started, unfortunately. There's so many challenges right now and so many issues going on. It's almost hard to keep up. It's just out of control, it feels like. Feels like the world has just lost control. Many of the challenges ahead, I think, are some of the challenges that we've already had, but we're going to see more, and they're going to more intensify. More supply chain issues, more inflation, more shortages, all of this stuff. Lack of jobs, lots of job losses. I think we're seeing lots of businesses shutter in the area. They just can't stay open with the cost of everything, the supply chain constraints, all this stuff. It's really quite challenging for these businesses. Lack of services. Companies, they don't have the employees to provide the services that they need to provide. It's in the medical field, that is a big issue around here. We don't have the doctors and nurses and staff that should be there, so there's not many options for people if they can even find anything, unfortunately. And also utility prices. They are just skyrocketing and skyrocketing. I was talking to my sister the other day, and her natural gas bill monthly has doubled. It went from like $100 to $250, more than double. And you know, our electricity this month, our electric company went up 49% on the electricity. That is a huge, huge jump. I am not looking forward to next month's bill, but we're definitely trying to be as cautious as we can with the electricity. So I just thought I would put a good solid list together for a lot of these things you're already working on. Something you may have forgotten, could be, you know, there's lots of things that we can definitely do. I think one of the first things that we need to make sure that we have plenty in our stockpile is those long-term foods. The dry goods, your rice, beans, lentils, oats, things like that. Make sure those are really as much as you can possibly store, I think. And also in those dry goods, your freeze-dried foods, proteins, those are a big one. They are going to last a lot longer freeze-dried, and I really enjoy the texture of the freeze-dried meats. The chickens and beef are pretty good. We really like them in our house, so we're happy that we are able to put some of those away. So when we are not able to get fresh from the grocery store, it's a pretty good substitute. And freeze-dried foods definitely have a nice long shelf life, and they hold a lot of the nutrition compared to other methods of preserving. And the second thing I think is canned goods. They're not going to last as long, but having as much canned goods as you can. Canned goods are going to last 3, 5, maybe 10 years. So they're going to go way past the date that's on there. They're still going to be good. As long as that can is solid and intact, you want to make sure that you're keeping it cool, dark, dry. That's the best conditions for any of your food storage, really airtight. And if it's dry in there, your cans aren't going to rust. They're going to last longer. So canned goods are a big one because they're easy, open, and eat. Whether you're home canning or getting cans from the store, however you're doing it, I think both options are really good. Whatever works for you. The third thing, make sure you have plenty of fats and oils stored up or a way to get them. You can filter your grease from your meats. So when you cook ground beef or when you cook sausage or any of that stuff, you can save those fats, your bacon, save it, run it through a coffee filter into a, just strain it through a coffee filter, and it will collect all the bits and pieces in there that you might not want in there. But it will keep those fats good. And my grandma always kept a can on the stove. She never put it in the fridge. It was just on the stove, and she would use that She'd put a coffee filter on the top, pour the grease in, and just dig into it whenever she needed it. And she never refrigerated it, but you can keep it in the refrigerator if you're concerned about that. Number 4, water. Make sure you have enough water. If the grid goes down, we're seeing rolling blackouts in different parts of this country. I have heard from quite a few people that they're experiencing rolling blackouts here and there. And especially if you live in the country, your water is not going to work. In the city, a lot of times if there's no electricity, your water will continue to work because it's city water. But out in the country, you've got a well pump. No electricity means no water in the house. So making sure we have plenty of water stored up, and those backup filters. We want to make sure we've got a water filter so when our stores run out, because in a long-term situation, your water will run out. You cannot store enough. Having filters and backups and stuff like that is really important to make sure you've got that. Number 5, backup heat and fuel. Making sure that you have got your backup heat. That grid goes down, rolling blackouts, anything. This time of year, it's really, really cold, especially in the northern part of this country. Many places around the world, it is freezing, freezing cold. And when the power goes out, a lot of people have no way to heat. You want to make sure that your backup heat is ready to go at any time, because if your electricity goes down and your house is already warm, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain that heat than if you let it cool down and have to start from scratch. That's going to take a lot more energy to get that temperature to come up to where you want it. So making sure that you're prepared for that is important, and having the fuel for it. If I know it's not an option for everybody, but I honestly think a wood stove is the best option, because you can always go out and find dry wood. Even in the middle of winter, down trees that are sticking up out of the snow, you can find dry wood and be able to create fire and heat. So I think wood stoves are the best way to go. Those little gas burners are great too, whatever it is that you can do. I know not everybody can have a wood stove. And number 6, backup lights. Your lights also, a lot of times they create heat, especially your lanterns, candles, things like that. If you have lanterns, your kerosene lanterns, you want to make sure you've got plenty of oil for them and plenty of wicks and things like that. So those can last a really long time. And your candles, they run out, unfortunately. Candles are great for heat and great for lighting, but they do tend to run out a lot quicker than oil lamps. I think they last a lot longer for the amount of oil compared to the same amount of wax, definitely. And flashlights, headlamps, batteries, all that stuff, whatever it is that you're going to use for your backup lighting, you're going to want to make sure you have plenty of it and whatever to supply it. And number 7, backup medical. Medical is a big problem. If we see drug shortages around the country, we see different things in different areas. There are lack of doctors in many areas, lack of nurses, but due to, the constraints that have been placed on them, and they are doing the best they can to service everybody and make sure that they're giving out good care, but there just isn't enough of them at this time because they've had constraints put on them and they're trying to be forced. So we have to be realistic and be prepared to take care of our own medical. Having a good supply of antibiotics, I think, is important. Whatever you choose for antibiotics, some people will go with like contingency medical, one of those kits, or they'll go with fish antibiotics, or whatever it is that's going to work for you. I think learning herbal medicine is huge. If you have the opportunity, learn all you can. Herbs can be absolutely wonderful, and they can help in so many different areas, which is great. Food is medicine. It really is. Making sure your first aid kit is full. All of your different kinds of trauma things, your first aid stuff, your ointments, anything like that that you could possibly need. Skin irritants, you know, stuff to help skin irritants. Making sure we have all that is going to be really important. We're going to have to rely more on ourselves. Number 9, home protection and personal protection. I think this is an absolute huge one. Violence and crime is rising across the country, everywhere. It's not just in one place. It's not just the cities. I live in Maine, and in Maine, I read an article yesterday of a murder, you know, people breaking into houses, all domestic violence. I know someone out in Colorado, they recently had a family member murdered. There is crime all over the place, and it is just getting worse. We need to be prepared to protect ourselves in whatever means that means. We've got to protect ourselves and our families. And I think home protection is a big one. Driveway alarms are fairly inexpensive, but it gives you a heads up that someone's out there if something comes through and onto your property or near your door, or however you set them up. It gives you that little heads up so you can grab whatever you need to grab. Also, extra motion sensor lighting. There's a lot of solar ones out there that are really inexpensive, and you can light it up like a street, you know. You can really get really bright ones for pretty inexpensive, so you can have plenty of lighting outside at nighttime. Tripwires are another one. We have put tripwires up. They are pretty easy to do, and a lot of times they're really loud and they will scare people off. You really don't have to do too much. Gunfire in their ear really deters them. Tripwires can be very good. They're not legal everywhere, so definitely check, make sure you're not going to get in trouble or anything. I would hate to see that happen. Beefing up your locks on your doors and stuff. If you have just one little handle lock on your door, those are very easy to get open. Adding deadbolts, adding the armor things to your door. There are lots of things you can do to beef up your locks. And number 10, and this is probably the biggest one and will help you the most in the long run, is beefing up your skills, your fire skills, your foraging skills, your how to make things on your own, you know, sewing, fishing, hunting, all of these different skills, tracking, tying knots, things like that. There's lots of stuff that you can do to help you in the long run. And a lot of these skills are absolutely free to learn. There are so many videos on YouTube. Really, you can learn so much just off YouTube. You can learn tracking. You can learn all sorts of stuff. If you know someone, I think foraging is probably the most difficult, but if you know someone that forages, a lot of times they will help you learn. They would happily take a walk in the woods and show you what they're getting, you know, and what to look for. So I think that is one of the biggest things, because when it comes to some plants, one will be 100% safe and is great to eat, and another one may look very, very similar but is poisonous. So having someone to show you what the difference is so you can get them yourselves, I think is a big one, and that's even worth a $25 or $50 fee that a lot of places charge to have these classes. I think they're definitely worth it. A lot of times back in the day, our ancestors they didn't just garden. I mean, they had victory gardens, but they went out and they foraged. They found food in the woods. They hunted. You know, it wasn't just growing it because they couldn't grow quite enough. So they would go out and do a little bit more with the foraging. So I think that is a really big one. If you have any other must-have preps for 2023, put them in the comments down below. It really helps people. I thought I would just put a little list of 10 together that I think are super important, but there are definitely more things that people may want to have. And that's it for today. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.